I've started 5 businesses from nothing and scaled them to making £10,000 a month. And some of them went on to make more than £50,000 a month. I'm going to tell you the exact formula that worked for me, because there is a formula that people don't really tell you about. But some of the wealthiest people in the world use these formulas, and I'm going to share them with you in this video today. Now, there's a structure. Let's start from the beginning. The beginning part is knowing your numbers. You have to know your numbers. I know it's a little bit boring, but let me explain. How much does something cost you? How much are you going to make? How many times do you need to sell something? And by that, again, let me add context. So if you have a product, which is £9.99, and if you need to make £10,000 a month, and that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you in this video, then you need to sell that product 1,000 times. However, 1,000 times once will be £10,000 a month. Now the next month, you need to do it all over again. So whatever you have used or done to get those 1,000 sales, you need to do again and again and again. Now, one would be thinking, well, if I keep doing that, then whatever I'm doing right now might work today, might not work in 3 months. So let's say you've got an ad and the ad's really working and bringing you in the sales and getting you £9.99 1,000 times every month. Well, by the 3rd or 4th month, that ad might dry out and might not work anymore. So what do? Well, one would say that you need to have a subscription, reoccurring basis. If you've got something on a reoccurring basis, you're more likely to get that to a £10,000 mark. So now on a subscription basis, your worry would be something else. Let's say you're getting 100 people joining every single month. Some people will obviously leave. Okay, so £9.99, you've got a product or a service, 100 people join, but 20 people leave. Now, technically, you're an 80 user or 80 times £9.99 profit, which is great, right? However, you have to factor in the numbers. You need to work out how much it's going to cost, how much you're going to charge, how much you're spending on marketing. Let's say now you're spending £1,000 running an ad. You need to factor that in, and you're spending that much, and now how much is that getting you? So £9.99 times 1,000 is obviously much harder, or I would say it's much harder than charging £100 to 100 people. That's people. My advice is something different, and I'm going to share that with you at the end of the video, where I actually think you should be targeting, who you should be targeting in terms of trying to make £10,000 a month, where you should be trying to get your money, and the best routes to do that. I am going to explain that in the end of the video, but I'm going to give you the value and the formula, the magic stuff first. Okay, so first, the numbers. Please, guys, you need to do the numbers. What I mean by that also now is, let's say those 80 people that joined, and I'm using this same as an example. How did those 80 people join? What was the route you used? Was it marketing in terms of ads? Was it social media? Was it cold calling? Was it email stuff? What worked? And we're getting closer to the middle part of the formula, but the beginning part is numbers, numbers, numbers. How much do you need to spend? How much is a customer acquisition? I don't want to go into the technical terms of what I mean by this stuff, but in essence, how much are you spending in terms of time and value, and what are you doing to get one customer? You need to know these things, right? And this all comes down to reading data, doing research, and figuring out every single thing number by number. The cost, the time, the cost of a customer. Now, when I say cost of a customer, how much money are you going to spend to get that customer in, all right? These are things that you have to look at in the beginning. And obviously, you want to know, whether your product or service is even going to sell. Now, I'm going to assume you've done that research yourself, and I can't have this video be, is your product or service going to work? But I'm going to tell you the mechanics. The mechanics are actually very important, and nobody tells you these things. Now, let's say you're spending X amount on a copywriter, you're spending X amount on emails, you're spending X amount on, running an ad, and you see that actually out of all those things, this one thing is really working. Let's say that one thing is email marketing. Okay, email marketing is really working for you. Now, what should you do? Well, if email marketing is working for you, then you need to make sure you double down on that in terms of your resources and in terms of your time. That's exactly what you would do. So you do the numbers, you make sure that you're in a profit margin, you work out how many times you need to sell something to make money, your £10,000 a month. You do the numbers. So I need to sell something 1,000 times at £9.99 to make £10,000 a month. You can do the same. I need to sell something, 100 times to 100 people for £100 to make, again, £10,000 a month. Again, factoring in people canceling, people leaving. So technically I should do more, because if people keep leaving, then I'll slowly go down to 8,000 or 9,000. And so that's not what I want to do. So factor in the numbers, do those net profit, gross profit, revenue, expenses, all these things you need to understand. By the way, go back and watch this stuff again. I try to go through them quickly because I know you guys don't have that much attention span these days. I get it. So I'm trying to go over this very, very quickly. Okay. Now the middle part, double down on what works. If email marketing works, you double down on it. You do so much more. You spend more there. You get another copywriter in, or whatever you want to do. I like doing the writing stuff myself. I think I do it well, so I do it myself always, right? But double down on it, spend more money on it, do more at the thing that works. There's no point you're doing 5 routes of trying to get customers in. There's no point doing all 5 if one of them does better than all the other 4, right? If one is doing better than the other 4, then double down on that. Right? Do it again and again and again and again. And this is something that we're actually taught by entrepreneurs, that sometimes we end up doing this one thing, it really works, and we're like, wow, amazing, but I don't want to do it again because it might not work again. No, actually what makes more sense is if something worked, like for example, if one ad has really worked for you, you spent money on it, and now that ad is shut, for example, what makes more sense is to tweak that ad, or double down or spend more money on that ad, because you need to try to get as much juice out as you can in this one route. That's important. Right? So do it again and again and again, and it's fine. So, on social media, you would have seen me do the, mortgage videos many a times. You would have seen the certain videos a certain amount of times, many a times, because, well, guess what? New people see those new videos. Now, obviously, you should always keep trying, and trialing and error and doing new things is very important, and experimenting, because then you might find, again, something which really, really works. But always do the things that do work always for you consistently, double down and do them more. The middle part is doubling down on what works and doing more of it, and that is the formula. Now, the end part is probably the most important part, but before that, I will tell you, if it was me and I wanted to make the £10,000 a month, look, I wouldn't charge customers. I wouldn't charge the average person. I would, if I really wanted to make a lot of money, I would go to the people that have a lot of money. So I wouldn't charge £9.99. I would charge £500, £1,000, maybe even £5,000. And I would charge them to people that can afford that sort of money. Who can afford that sort of money? Well, businesses can afford that sort of money, because the average person, working a job is working a job, 25, 30, 35K, 45K. They can't afford £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 a month, but they can afford, 100, 200 or 300 pounds. Let's put this into perspective. Okay. If someone is making £3,000 a month, which is around £50,000 a year, which is a very high salary, when you're trying to get £300 from them, that's 10% of their salary. And they have a lot of expenses already, by the way. So that's not even 10% of the free money, the extra money, the money that they have to spend on luxuries or materialistic things or themselves or whatever. That 10% is actually off their total amount, and they haven't even taken away the bills and expenses, right? You are now charging 10%. However, a business is making, 50, 100, 150,000 pounds a month minimum, really. Most small to medium sized businesses will be making, 40, 50,000 pounds a month minimum. Honestly speaking, if you've got 10 employees and you're paying them £3,000 a month per employee, then you're spending just on payroll £30,000 a month. So obviously that business is making a lot of money, right? Now, if a business is making, let's say, £100,000 a month, and you ask them for £1,000, this is amazing now. A business making £100,000 a month, and you charge them £1,000, well, you're only asking for 1% of what they make a month. That is the difference. So now, £300 compared to £1,000. And let me explain the difference here. When you're charging businesses, you are in essence dealing with people who have no emotional connection with the money itself. So when you're dealing with a director, project manager, CFO, CEO, whatever, usually they're not even the ones who are affected by the money that much, right? It's not money out of their pocket, it's money out of the business. So of course, if you're dealing with a business owner and it's 10, 15 employees, fine. But any business that has 100 employees, 50 plus employees, usually you're dealing with someone who doesn't even have an emotional connection with the money. That's pivotal. So if you can get £1,000 a month out of someone who doesn't even have an emotional connection with the money, it's much easier than getting £300 out of someone who makes £3,000 a month. That's big. It's important for you to understand. I want you to save this video, share with your family and friends, because what I'm explaining right now it changes your mindset and explains how you should be doing business. But I'm going to make a separate video for you guys on this stuff. So make sure you subscribe up and like this video if you haven't already. And the last part of the formula is how do you retain customers? Because there is no point in getting customers and bringing new people through the door if you can't retain customers. You need to provide a good service, and it all comes down to the data. Everything, any business, I will look at whatever business I'm going to start. I've started 5 different businesses and I've got them all making 10+ thousand pounds a month. How did I do that? I looked at the numbers. I looked at doubling down on what worked, and then I worked at the analytics, keeping these two always. The last part doesn't now discontinue the first part. So looking at the numbers, what works, and doubling down on what does work, keeping that, and now retaining the customers and finding out, well, actually, how can we provide a good service? How can we do as much as we possibly can to make sure everyone is happy? And so these guys now, if they're happy, word of mouth, reviews, references, and so much more. I mean, even when it comes to B2B stuff, it is so powerful to get a review from a customer and make sure your customers are happy. It goes a long, long way. So if you can keep your customers happy and if you can retain them, then the value of that one customer stays on for a long time. Now, to conclude, it's probably one of the most important lessons that you need to understand this, that £10,000 a month for business A, their valuation can be completely different for a business B making £10,000 a month. Both businesses are making £10,000 a month, but the valuation of both businesses is completely different. What do I mean? Let me explain. A business where every single month you have to bring in new customers to get £10,000 a month, where every single month you're having to make new sales, it's not reoccurring sales, that business is going to be valued at maybe ×1 or ×2 valuation of what they're making a year. So that business will be worth maybe 120 or 200,000 pounds for the whole business, because you keep having to bring in new business. If the new business is automatic and it's automated, and you bring in new customers without having to do too much effort, the valuation will be higher. Having said that, if it's a subscription, reoccurring, monthly basis, companies continue to pay, then that business now is valued at 5 or 6 times what it's making in the year. So if you're charging 10,000, or if you're making £10,000 a month times 12 months, £120,000, £120,000 times 5 to 6 is what that company will be valued at. So close to £700,000 was what the company is valued at. If it's a reoccurring, a lot of it is automated, you have employees, you're not having to rely on other people, you can sell it, you can give someone the keys and they can just start the car up and they can go. That's basically what you're doing. Then your company will be valued at so much more. So both businesses are making £10,000 a month, but one business is valued at so much more. Again, if you want me to make a video on that, comment below, let me know, and exactly the sort of videos you want me to make, I'll make them for you. Hopefully these videos are of benefit. Remember to subscribe to the channel. We're going to make some banging videos for you guys.